All right, so to get us started, just sort of little introduction to what we're actually going to be doing today. So last time we did Billings Tracery 1, right? And the big trick there was getting these two little tangent circles, and we had to do all these different theorems of Apollonius. So you can see Tracery 2 below it. It's kind of a very different type of construction. It's not so much dependent on Tracery 1, except for those three big circles. So I went ahead and skipped to Tracery 3 because it also has those two circles that we constructed with Tracery 1, and then it adds a little circle in here, and then it adds a ring of circles that's different than the ring of circles that we did in Tracery 1. So this is like these four chasing circles. So this is the one that we're going to look at today, is Tracery number 3. And to get us started, so go to the link for the GeoGebra file, and then you should see the little hamburger menu in the top right, and you want to save to your computer. And I'm just going to save it to my desktop. And I like to call things with the date, so this is going to be 2023-09-30, Billings Tracery 3. So once we've got that saved, we should be able to just go to where our file is. And I have GeoGebra 5 and GeoGebra 6 on my computer, so I'm going to actually open up GeoGebra 5 and open it from there so that it doesn't accidentally open in GeoGebra 6. And so basically this is almost the same file as what we constructed in the last session, but I deleted some things that are not necessary with that group of 6 circles and a lot of the circumcircular arcs and all of that stuff. But all of the geometric construction that we had to do with all the different theorems of Apollonius in order to get this circle in place is all still there. It's just hidden. So kind of keep that in mind. And let me open up my copy of this tutorial so that I can see what I'm doing here. Don't need Billings open anymore. Oh, this stupid Zoom bar is always getting in my way. Okay. Got to have all my things open on my computer so that I can see you all, and I can see my tutorial, and I can see my GeoGebra. There we go. All right, so we're going to start by constructing that little circle that lives here. And in order to do that, we're going to do some of the same kinds of things that we did to construct these guys, where...
Hola, Rodi. ¿Qué tal? Domingo con lo de Adriano, hoy es
somebody,
sábado.
would you guys mind muting? Certainly.
Oh. Y podemos ir a almorzar afuera, Rodi, hoy. Podemos ir en el shopping o si no vamos allá.
Give me just a second. There we go. All right. So in order to construct this magenta circle, remember we took this top circle radius and expanded the larger circle by that radius. So we're going to do sort of a similar construction, except this time we're going to take our magenta circle and we're going to reduce the radius of this top circle by that radius. So that's kind of how we're going to start. So let me make sure I'm doing everything in the same order. Um, all right, so we're going to start by constructing a circle centered at point B1 that passes through point Z. So centered at this point of tangency that goes through the center of that magenta circle. So I'm going to grab my circle with center through point tool and click on point B1 and then point Z. And so all that's doing is it's giving us that radius extended in both directions, right? So I could have done this in either order, but I constructed my circle first. And then I also want a line that passes through the centers of both of those circles. And that's going to exactly go through that point of tangency. So I'm going to grab my line tool and I'm going to click on point Z and then point G, or I could have done G, then Z. I also could have used point B1 since this line does pass through that point. Anyway, all 3 points are collinear here. And then what we want is this point where that line intersects this circle. So remember, we don't want our point tool, we want our intersect tool underneath the point tool. And I want to find that intersection. Let me zoom in. So I want to find this intersection where this circle intersects line GZ. If I were to click on the line and then the circle, it would construct another extraneous point on top of point Z. So you really do here want to wait for your cursor to turn into a hand and find that intersection, because we don't want any extra points if we can avoid them. And then I'm going to grab my circle with center through point tool again, and I want to construct a circle centered at G that passes through point J. And I'm going to make this circle purple. Any questions so far?
Well,
How do I get the
something I
properties
did.
panel up again?
So you can right click on the object. So make sure you're on your arrow move tool. You can right click on the object and get to object properties that way. Nancy, did you have a question also?
Well, I just I hate it when I have different letters than you do. So something that I did created that point on top of J, but my what should be J is called L. But I don't think it's a big deal, but it just gets confusing if you need to refer to
Yeah,
something
so
else.
why don't, since we're just at the very beginning, why don't you undo a step? So delete point J or L or whatever the case may be. And
Edit,
probably what
okay.
happened is you selected your circle and then the line rather than clicking right on that intersection.
Oh, yeah, just what you said not to do. Let's see, how many undos do I get? I only one?
So I wouldn't even do an undo. I would
Yeah.
just delete the point, because undo doesn't always work how you want it to in
Okay.
GeoGebra.
The point J. So go down in the menu thing, the point J. Okay, thank you. So sorry. Okay,
Oh, it's
now
okay.
circle through point, then, oh no, hang on, point of intersection. And I
So wait for your
got my
mouse
hand.
to turn into the hand and then click
It's
right on
called
that intersection.
J.
Awesome.
Okay, circle through point, and then the circle is
GJ.
J. Okay. Okay, so
And
thank
we're going to
you.
make it purple.
And we're going to right click.
Yeah, so you can right click. Well, remember, always make sure you're on that move tool so you don't accidentally apply an intersection or a circle or things that we don't want.
I was curious. It seems like so we're reducing the magenta circle down to a point for the Apollonius tangency. So like last time when I was following along later on the recording, you reflected you reflected a point from another point to get that expand the circle. Would that have worked with reflecting Z around B1 or
We
no?
could have also
This is just
done
like an
the
alternative
reflect.
way of adjusting the radius for the bigger circle.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's so many different ways you can do it. Yeah, so that reflecting point Z around point B1 would have done the exact same thing. I think I showed it this way mostly because this is how you would do it if you were constructing by hand.
Yeah, totally. That makes
So,
sense. I think it makes more sense seeing it this way versus the first time I was like, what are we doing? But
oh, yeah.
now it makes a lot more sense with the circle.
Yeah, so this is how you would reflect that point about the point. Yeah, good observation there. All right, so now we've already got, so remember, we're trying to draw a circle that's tangent to the magenta circle, tangent to this circle, and then has its center along this line that our magenta circle is tangent to, right? So you'll notice I left in this line that's perpendicular to that line, as well as some key intersection points. So this next step that we do, well, I guess let's go ahead and draw the circle first, and then we'll kind of talk about it a little bit. So point D1 is a point along this line, right? It's a particular point where these two circles are tangent, but what's important for this step, for this construction, is just that it's a point on this line. So I'm going to grab my circle with center through point tool, and I want to construct a circle centered at D1 that goes through point Z. And you really can do this with any point at all along this line. And part of me wants to demonstrate it, but I also don't want to get the names of my points off from what all you are doing. But you could play around with it later. Like you can grab, I'll do this. So if I just grab my point on object tool and construct a point, I'll go ahead and delete this later. But if I pick any point along this line and draw a circle, the same construction is going to work. Okay. So all I need is some point along this line and a circle centered at that point that goes through point Z. And the key thing is I want that circle to intersect my purple circle at 2 points. Okay. Because, so now let me go ahead and delete this. Because where those two circles intersect, it's going to define a line. And let me do these in the same order. So I want to find those 2 points of intersection, point L and point M. Here you could click on one circle and then the other. I'm not sure which one it would call L, which one it would call M. So I just went ahead and did them with the intersect tool, clicking on the intersection. But basically the idea is no matter where these two circles intersect, if I draw a line through those 2 points, it's always going to intersect this blue line at the exact same point, which is really cool. It's a really cool thing. So let's go ahead and draw in line LM.
Hang on, Sarah, I thought you were just demonstrating a point before and I didn't get that circle
Oh,
drawn in.
yeah.
So circle through point and you just
Okay, so let me back up. Let me delete L, delete M, and delete my circle. So circle with center through point tool, and I want a circle centered at D1 that passes through point Z. So the center of the magenta circle.
and then the intersect.
Then the intersect tool, and where that circle intersects our purple circle, I want to find intersection L and intersection M.
Okay. Mhm.
And then I want to draw a line through L and M. Yeah,
Okay.
so what I was demonstrating before was basically like I didn't need the center of this circle to be D1 necessarily. It could have been any point at all along this line, as long as the circle intersects the magenta circle, or the purple circle, excuse me.
Mhm.
All right, so then what we care about is where that line intersects our blue line. So let me grab my intersect tool, and it should be point N. And now this is where, it gets a little tricky if you're trying to construct by hand, because you have to do a few more construction steps than we do in GeoGebra. But underneath the perpendicular line tool, we want to go down to tangents. And what we're going to do is we're going to construct the 2 tangent lines from point N to the purple circle. So I want to know where, what lines are tangent to the purple circle that pass through point N. So I can click on the circle first and then the point, or the point first and then the circle. So I'm going to click on point N, and then I'm going to click on my purple circle, and I should get 2 lines. I should get this line and this line. So a couple things I want you to notice here. Remember the construction that Billings showed for tracery number 1 in his book wasn't exactly a precise construction. It was an approximated construction. So for him, this line GZ would have been horizontal, but in reality, it's not perfectly horizontal. But this line from point N to the purple circle is horizontal. So these 2 lines are not exactly parallel in reality. In Billings' book, they would have been parallel because of the approximation. But his circles wouldn't have been perfectly tangent. So. All right, so we've got this horizontal line, and then we have this line down here that's tangent to our purple circle at a point. So that's going to be our next step, is finding that point of tangency. And anytime I'm finding a point of tangency, I could click on the intersection, but I really would rather click on the line and then the circle to find that point of tangency. So this line that's tangent to the purple circle and the purple circle gives us point O. And then we're going to construct a line through that point and through point G. So I'm going to grab my line tool and I'm going to construct GO. Am I going too fast? How are we doing? Awesome. Good.
It just feels like your voice is getting a bit low, that's all.
Oh,
See,
apologies.
is it just for me? I don't know. Seems to be getting a bit.
All right, so once we've got line GO, then where this intersects the line through B and D1, that's going to be the center of our circle right here. So this intersection E1 right here, that is going to be the center of our tangent circle. And then we have a few different ways we could construct it. Because we're going to be doing some tracery things, we need multiple intersections anyway. We're going to go ahead and construct a line from the center of circle Z to that point also. So let me grab my line tool and I'm going to draw in ZE1. And so basically all I have here is G, Z, and E1 is this triangle whose vertices are the centers of a trio of tangent circles. And so anytime you connect the centers of two tangent circles, the line passes through the points of tangency. So this point here and this point here are where this circle will tangent our two circles. So those are we're going to put those intersections in. Let me make sure I don't do too much at once or do them in the right order and all that stuff so it matches the tutorial. So let's go ahead and grab our intersect tool. And I'm going to zoom way in to make sure I get this point at the right spot. So where line ZE1 intersects the magenta circle, I'm going to plot point F1. And then I can draw in my circle. And you can see how that snaps and into place, and it's just a super nice little tangent circle, happy little tangent circle. Anytime I construct a circle that's like perfectly tangent, it just, I don't know, it's so satisfying. And we can make this whatever color. Because I was fitting this in with all the color coding from the first Billings Tracery, I just made this like a different shade of purple. But you could kind of make it whatever color you want. We're not going to do anything super complicated that after this that really makes the color all that important. Because really from here, all we have to do is find some intersections and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to transition now that we have this circle. I'm going to fill in a couple of intersection points, and then we're going to shift over to finding the other circles that we need for the construction. And then we'll put in all our little circumcircular arcs and fill in the tracery. All right, so let's grab our intersect tool, and we want this other point of tangency. So I could find the intersection of this line and one of these circles. I'm just going to click on the circle and then the circle to get that point G1. All these things intersect at exactly the same place, so you could use your hover over it and click with the hand, as long as we've got that point G1 in there. And then making sure I'm on my arrow tool, I'm going to shift over a little bit. And what we want is where this circle intersects the vertical at the bottom. So I want this very bottom point here. So I'll grab my intersect tool and I want to click on this intersection H1. And so again, this is a situation where I've already got a point at the top of that circle where it intersects the vertical. So I don't want to click on the line and then the circle, or the circle and then the line, because it's going to generate an extra point that we don't want. All right, so the reason to put in this point H1 is that it turns out that the construction for the circles that are going to live inside this circle, that group of 4, Billings actually does a pretty good job of showing us how to construct those. So let me, oh, I don't have it pulled up anymore. Shoot. Let me find it really quick so that I can point something out to you. Let's see. What page? There we go. Okay, so Billings shows us that each of these circles is a third of the size of the whole circle. And it turns out that does make for this nice, like perfectly tangent situation. And so what we're going to be looking for is splitting up the diameter of that circle into 6 equal parts, so that we have all those radii in place. Okay, so that's going to be our next task. And did I lose it? Somehow every time I like move something on my screen, I have to readjust. Okay, so the easiest way, I think, in order to get that 1/6 dimension is for us to define a line segment that is the diameter of this circle. So underneath our line tool, we're going to grab our segment tool and we're going to construct IH1. And just for sake of like ease of finding it in the menu and that sort of thing, I'm just going to make this a different color. So I'm going to make it some kind of a pink. Everything is pink and purple in this construction. But as long as it's just sort of a different color. And the main reason we want to construct that in there is so that we have a nice name for it. So it's, for me, it's A sub 1, and hopefully yours is A sub 1 as well. And then what we're going to do is we're going to construct a circle centered at I, whose radius is a 1/6 of A sub 1. And there's a lot of different ways we could do this, but the simplest way is just to type it into the input bar. And feel free to just copy paste this from the tutorial. But what I'm going to type into the input bar is circle, open parentheses, and then we tell it what point we're centering it at. So I'm centering it at capital I, and then I tell it the radius that I want. And so I'm going to do open parentheses 1/6. And see, it already kind of knows what I'm going for without me even finishing the statement. But I do need to finish the statement. So times A sub 1, close parentheses. And so I'll leave that up for just a second so you can see it. The compass construction to split this up into 6ths is a little bit more complicated. This is the easy way, because yay technology. All right, so let me hit enter, and now I've got this circle. And then now that I have that circle, I don't want this line segment there anymore. So it's going to be really important for us to hide that line segment, because we're going to be constructing a number of points along this line. And if you try to like use your intersect tool where you have both a line segment and a line superimposed on each other, GeoGebra never knows which one you're trying to point to. So we're going to hide this guy. And so I'm going to make sure I've got segment AI selected, and I'm going to click on show object to hide it.
Sarah, excuse me, I didn't get the circle. I got hung up in the syntax. I'm sorry, would you? And also like with the sub one thing, like am I supposed to type a subscript? But could
It's an underscore. So I typed it in the chat also.
okay. Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah,
Chat.
so the notation is saying we want a circle, and then inside the parentheses, the center of the circle, comma, the radius of the circle. So it's centered at I, and then its radius is 1/6 times a sub 1. And yeah, you're not actually typing a subscript, just an underscore.
Okay, now we're on the part about we're going to hide that segment.
Hide that line segment. And I'm going to zoom way in because this is a little hairy in here. There's lots of stuff going on. So I'm going to zoom way in, and I want to find the point where that circle intersects the vertical. So I'm going to grab my intersect tool. And if that line segment were still visible, I wouldn't be able to just click on that point. GeoGebra would be like, what are you trying to do? I don't know where to put that intersection. So we good with that point? Okay. And then now this is another situation where I could have like reflected a point and that sort of thing. But remember, we want a circle this size that's actually situated inside the circle. And so now what we can do is draw a circle centered at I1 that passes through I. And so this is the size of the circle that's actually exactly 1/3 the diameter of circle GH1 or GI. And so these, we want 4 of them perfectly situated around this circle. Well, I'm not going to draw all 4 of them, but I definitely need this one over here in order to complete some of the other arcs and things that we're going to draw. So to get the one on the right, we'll do a rotation. But before we do that, we want to find a point halfway between G and I. So under the intersect tool or under the point tool, I want to find the midpoint or center tool. And I want to find the midpoint between G and I. So what this is doing is this is helping me construct a circle. So a circle with center through point that's half the diameter of the whole circle. And I didn't make this a color in my tutorial, but let's maybe make this a color just so it stands out. So let's maybe make this blue. So I've got a circle here that's 1/3 of the diameter, and I've got a circle here that's half the diameter. So then, all right, so next we're going to rotate this circle. So this circle, select it. Hopefully yours is called D subscript 2. And what we're going to do is we're going to rotate this circle by 90 degrees or pi over 2 radians clockwise to the right. And it's not going to fall exactly on this line because remember this line isn't exactly horizontal. So when we make this rotation, don't freak out if like they don't line up because they shouldn't perfectly line up. So I'm going to go ahead and paste this into the chat, but then I'll type it in on my screen. And so D underscore 2. So I'm going to rotate circle D underscore 2. So I tell it what I want to rotate and then by how much I want to rotate. So I want to rotate by pi over 2, but I want to rotate clockwise. So that's why we make it negative pi over 2. And remember, you can just type pi. And then I'm rotating about the center of that larger circle, so point G. So I'm rotating D by D sub 2 by negative pi over 2 about point G. Leave that up for just a second. All right, so now I've got this circle, and I want you to notice that even though it doesn't fall exactly on this line, it is perfectly tangent to that blue circle. So that's a really, really nice construction. So let's find that point of tangency. So I'm going to grab my intersect tool and I'm going to click on this circle and then the blue circle. And that should be point K sub 1. Is that okay? And then now we'll see how this doesn't perfectly line up with that not so horizontal line when we find the center of that circle. So I'm going to use the same midpoint or center tool that we used to find the center of the blue circle. This time, all I'm going to do is click on this circle and the center of that circle shows up. So that's actually a really useful tool if you're constructing circles by like a circle through 3 points or some other method where you don't know the center of the circle. I used that a lot whenever I was doing the GeoGebra version of Adam Williamson's oh gosh, what was the name of the really biomorphic
Was it the
arch
Lutfalla
thing?
Dome?
No, not
thing?
the Lutfalla Dome thing. This one that's on my desktop.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I
This
remember
guy.
that.
Used that find the center quite a bit.
I remember when you had it as a crown for yourself or something.
Yes, yes. It wanted to be a hat.
Yes.
As many things do. Many things want to be hats. All right, so where were we? So we've got this circle. We've got the point of tangency of the circle with the blue circle. We've got the center of that circle. And let's see, I think we've almost got all the information that we need. Oh, hang on. I got my points in the wrong order. Let me delete that L1 so that I match the tutorial and let me find this other point of tangency first. It doesn't make that much difference, but just so the things match. So I want to find this point of tangency over here, and I don't want to just click because of this line being there. So I'm going to click on little circle and then big circle, and then that one's going to be L1. And then I want to find the center of that circle. So slightly different order. If your L1 and M1 are swapped, that's okay. So my apologies there. I just wanted to be in the same order as the tutorial for those that like things to be neat and orderly, which I know I do. So, all right, so we've got all of our underlying information now. So everything we need to complete the construction is here. So it looks just like a little jumble of circles, but now we're going to start putting in some of those arcs, and then it's all going to come together. So I'm going to move back over here to my magenta circle that we started with. And what we're going to do is we're going to create an arc through A1, C1, and B1, or actually the other order, because you have to go counterclockwise, B1, C1, and A1. And so underneath circle with center through point, I want, I think last time we did a bunch of circumcircular arcs where we went through 3 points, so we could do it this way. Let's do the circular arc this time, just to do it a little bit differently. And I was wrong. We're not going to stop at A1. We're going to stop at F1. So I'm going to grab my circular arc tool. And then I'm going to click on point Z because that's the center of the circular arc. And then I'm going to click on B1. And this is going to go around until I get to F1. And I'm going to make that a little bolder just so we can see it a little bit better. So circular arc tool, centered at Z, starting at B1 and going around to F1. Is that okay? Do I need to do it again?
No. It's okay.
All right. So we've got that arc. And then let's go ahead and make a sequence of these arcs. And so let me just verify the name of this arc. So mine is G sub 2. Hopefully yours is G sub 2 also. And I'm going to put this in the chat. So I want to make a sequence of rotations of this arc about point B. And I want to rotate by a third of the circle. So 2 pi over 3. And so I'm going to zoom out so we can see what happens when we do this. So I'm going to type sequence because I want a sequence of rotations. So sequence, rotate, the thing I want to rotate, G sub 2, the amount I want to rotate. So increments of 2 pi over 3. So 2 times pi times I over 3, because remember we're incrementing it. And then the thing I want to rotate about, so I'm going to rotate about B, close my parentheses, comma, and then my incrementing variable I, where I'm going to start my increment is no rotations at all. I want 0, 1, and 2. So I know that seems like a lot just to get 3 little arcs, but GeoGebra is a lot happier with a sequence of things than it is if I were to just actually rotate the thing 2 times because GeoGebra would have to construct not only the arc but the points corresponding to that arc multiple times. And so this just makes our program like a lot more lightweight. Because somehow you could reflect and rotate your individual objects many, many times and achieve the same result. But the more points you have, the more clunky your GeoGebra file is, and the more it wants to glitch and not behave. All right, so then I'm going to grab my Reflective Outline tool. I'm going to click on one of those green arcs, and then I'm going to click on my vertical center line to get the other half.
I'm sorry, could you just repeat that? Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
So
Mhm.
with the Reflective Outline tool, I'm going to click on one of those arcs, not the starting one just because there's too much stuff there. I want to make sure I'm selecting technically list L1. And then I want to click on my center vertical line because that's what I'm going to reflect over. So I'm clicking first on the thing I want to reflect and then the thing I want to reflect over.
Thank you.
So we're getting there. So these are similar to the arcs that we constructed for Tracery 1, but they go a little bit further. And then all we need from our little purple circle here is just that piece between F1 and G1. So just this one little curve. And I would say this is where it gets similar to the Fala Dome piece, right? Is all those little arcs. So let's grab our circular arc tool again. So remember, under the circle with center through point, circular arc tool. And I'm going to click on E1. And then remember, we have to go counterclockwise. So I'm going to click on G1 and then F1. And again, I'm going to make this a little thicker just so it stands out. And mine is called H sub 2. Yours should be also. And I'm going to use the exact same code that I typed in for the last rotation, except I'm going to replace G sub 2 with H sub 2. So I'll put this one in the chat. So I'm doing a sequence of rotations of H sub 2 by 2 pi I over 3 about point B, where I varies from 0 to 2. And again, this only gives us half of them, so we're going to have to reflect. So I'm going to grab my Reflective Outline tool, click on that arc, and then click on my center vertical.
Cool.
So we're getting there. So now we just have to mess with what's going to go on inside this circle. And it's basically like a little paisley shape where we're going to get part of this blue arc and then part of this circle. So let's grab the blue arc first. So let me zoom in here so I can see what I'm doing a little bit better. So again, I'm going to use the circular arc tool, centered at J sub 1, and we have to go counterclockwise. So I'm going to click on K sub 1 first, and then I. And I'm going to make this a little bolder so we can see it a little bit better. And hopefully yours is called K sub 2. And let's go ahead and make a sequence of rotations of those. So this is one where we're going to first make a sequence of rotations about point G, and then we're going to make a sequence of sequences around point B. Has everybody got that arc K2 in there?
Yes.
Cool. All right. So then my code for that first rotation, I want to rotate by 4 divisions of 2 pi. So pi over 2. So I'm going to do a sequence of rotations of, what was the name of this thing? K sub 2 by pi times I over 2 about point G, where I varies from 0 to 3 this time because I want 0, 1, 2, 3, so 4 total. And close my parentheses. And then if I zoom way out, what we're going to do is make a sequence of L3, so sequence of list 3, where we rotate by 3 divisions of 2 pi. So let me put that one in the chat also. So I'm doing sequence of rotations of L3, so not underscore this time, just L3, by 2 pi I over 3 about point B, where I varies from 0 to 2. And then all we have left is this arc for the 4 small circles. So I'm going to zoom back in over here. I'm going to grab my circular arc tool, and I want it centered at M1 and going counterclockwise. So I'm going to start with K sub 1 and end with L sub 1. And I'm going to make it thicker so we can see it. And mine is called P sub 2. And then we're going to use the same 2 sequences of code that we used before, this time just with P sub 2 instead. So I'm going to start by rotating it by 4ths about point G. So sequence rotate P sub 2 by pi I over 2 about G, where I varies from 0 to 3.
Ooh.
that okay?
Yeah.
And then we want our sequence of sequences. And this is L4. So I want sequence, rotate L4 by 2 pi I over 3 about B, where I varies from 0 to 2. So then it's just a question of hiding stuff. So I can hide all, if I show all my conics, there's all that stuff from last time showing up. We don't want all that. All we want is circle D, P, Q, and R. So I want those circles. I want to hide my points. And I want to hide my lines. And let's see. I can hide L2 and L3 since those I made sequences of. And then the rest of my lists, I'm going to make thicker and black so that they match my circles. Another way you can kind of make sure that they all have the same line thickness is right click and drag over the whole construction to select everything in the view. And then as long as everything can have a line thickness, you can adjust the line thickness that way. So you can do the same thing with like color and that sort of thing. So how do we do?
Good. That was a handy little trick. I didn't know about that select all thing with the that you could change the format of everything.
Yeah, it can be a little squirrely when you have like shapes that are filled in and lines and like a variety of different types of objects visible. But as long as the only objects you have visible have the same types of properties, then you can adjust the properties at once.
Yeah.
We've got a little bit of time. Is there any interest in seeing like what I would do with this in like Adobe Illustrator to make like
Yes.
what I did to get to this,
Yes. Yes.
for example? um, so that's sort of, I leave us with the GeoGebra construction usually, but then I don't really get to show like what I do beyond that. So we've got the thing, which hopefully your habits are not as terrible as mine and you saved at some point during your construction. But if not, save your construction. I was really good about reminding us to save last time. This time I didn't remind us to save at all because I'm terrible. At least nobody had a crash in the middle. So if I'm gonna work in Illustrator, typically I will export as a PDF, just because it plays nicer with Illustrator. If I'm gonna try to, if I just want a cut file, like I'm sending the outlines directly to a laser cutter, then I'll export as a SVG. But if I'm not if I'm not directly cutting something out, I find that PDFs behave a little bit more nicely. So I'm going to export graphics view as picture, and I want a PDF, and my default size is fine here. 1 units equals 10 centimeters. So that's fine. So I'm going to save this to my desktop. And often, probably what I should have done is kind of make this fill my graphics view a little bit better before exporting. So I usually try to like square this thing up a little bit before I export it, but it doesn't really make that much of a difference. So I'm going to open up Adobe Illustrator. And that's nice. And I'm going to open my file. And these are also like, so some of the steps that I show are some of the steps I would do if I were gonna like either draw this with my Cricut or if I was gonna cut out with my Cricut. So I treat it a little bit differently than if I were gonna cut with a laser. So one of the very first things that I'm gonna do here, whoops, hang on, let me fit in window. So one of the first things I do is I go into my layers and I delete all the clipping paths and the clip groups because they don't play well with like plotting machines and cutters and that sort of thing. So I'm going to delete all those. And I don't know why it sort of does this, but I delete everything that's a clipping group or a clipping path, except for all my little arc paths here. And then there's this blank path that's like the background, and I delete that one too. So the only thing I'm left with are my circles and my arcs. And then basically from here, I just play around with line weights. So GeoGebra, you can only get the line thickness so thick. But if, say, I wanted to cut this design out on my Cricut, for example, I would want those lines to be a lot thicker. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select everything and then go to Properties and play around with my stroke. And I can get it like a lot thicker. And that also makes it more, I don't know, Gothic Tracery-y, I guess. So like, for instance, this thickness would be good if I wanted to do something like extrude this to make it a 3D object because I'm gonna print it with the 3D printer, or I wanted to if I wanted to export this as a transparent PNG to cut out with my Cricut, this would be a good line weight. I don't know. It's sort of, I could show you guys sort of any of those paths. Or is there any preference of like where you want to go with this?
I'm surprised when you're cutting on your Cricut, wouldn't you be using a vector file rather than a PNG?
So the Cricut software is not like the most highly technical I don't know how to describe the Cricut software. It's for
Okay.
soccer moms.
Okay.
So it plays really well with transparent PNGs, and it does really well with like identifying what's the object and what you want to cut away. So if you leave like transparency, um, then it's happy. Now, if I had a vector file that actually found these outlines of my line weight, then I could deal with it in vector format with the Cricut. But because this is still a vector file where the line is just the center of that thickness, if I were to try to cut it out, I would just end up with a bunch of loose pieces rather than this thing that has a thickness. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like if I were trying to make a puzzle or like some like fun little tile thing that I wanted to put together, then absolutely sending the straight vector file to the Cricut is a good idea. But if I want like just this solid like stencil or something like that, or if I want to like put this on a t-shirt or whatever that sort of thing, I would want to leave it in this format. Um,
At this stage, you could probably like, what's it called? When you just like turn all the lines into outlines, and you could vectorize it that way if you wanted to keep the thickness. Probably, I think what's it called? Expand
Yeah.
appearance,
Expand appearance, yeah.
and then
how,
like
how do we do that?
You need to select your graphics first. And I'd be under object. And then expand.
Oh,
And then can you see then it's it go either you fill or stroke.
so
So if you could expand your stroke and try that one. And then that's your outlines. You might want to do a Control-Z to go back and then copy it and then play with that.
yeah, it is destructive. You don't
Yeah.
keep the previous lines, so I usually
Okay.
keep various versions around.
So it looked like you would still need to add
And
maybe
then
a few points.
Yeah, and then maybe you could use your Pathfinder after that so that you've got cutouts.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. My Illustrator skills are not like
Mine
amazing.
isn't either. I
So
don't like Illustrator at all. I have to use it now and again, but only on the surface, that's all.
But yeah, if you went to Window and opened up the Pathfinder tool, you could probably combine all these different objects into one.
Right, which one is it you'd recommend? I can't remember on this one now. Is it that very last one with a little square in it? Hang on, no, don't click on it yet. Anyone know?
I never
No,
remember.
it'll be just a circle.
I usually click one and see what
I've done it.
happens.
I've done it now. Yeah,
yeah,
that is
so
now.
Unite seem to
Yeah,
do
right,
it.
okay. If you just put like a colour behind it, you'll see that it's see-through.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Yeah. So this got us a vector that we could then send.
Yeah.
So this would be a good thing to send to a laser now if we wanted to. If you wanted to cut this out, or you could send it to the Cricut this way.
And save it as an SVG, maybe? Do you have to use that for Cricut? I don't know. Is it?
So Cricut plays
SVG?
well with a lot of different file types.
Right, okay.
Honestly, like if I'm cutting something out on the Cricut, I usually just do transparent PNG because it's the easiest. Like it's really happy if you give it a transparent file. It's like great. I don't have to do any work.
Sounds like I want one then.
Yeah, it's a fun tool. Well, thank you guys for showing me that So wait, what did we do here? We did what did we do first? We did object, expand, and then we did the Pathfinder tool.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. I love that I get to learn things too. Awesome.
I don't have Illustrator, but I do have Photoshop. So I
Yeah.
just selected everything white and then select inverse and then edit fill stroke. So.
Yeah, I do. So I play around in Illustrator and then I usually bring stuff into Photoshop and play around with it in Photoshop and um, you know, do all kinds of things. Usually I'll export several different versions of my GeoGebra file. Like I'll export a layer that has underlying construction and export a layer that has just the circles or export a layer that has just the, like if I'm doing an Islamic geometric pattern or something, just the layer that has the shapes, just so I can treat them differently with different, um, keep them in different layers, I guess, that sort of thing.
Well, I'll enjoy.
Cool.
With the last one, I did a thing with scans of pieces of batik fabric. And then I
Oh
used
yeah.
clipping masks because I didn't want it to be look like real computery, like with nothing natural about it. So that was kind of a fun little project with it.
Yeah. Cool. Is there anything else anybody wants to see or talk about?
What's next?
What's next? I don't know what's next. I've been so overwhelmed. I can show you guys how to do some augmented reality in Metaspark.
Oh,
So Sarah, you say you're in school or you're a teacher or what?
I was a teacher. Now I'm a student again, full time. So I'm working on my Master of Fine Arts degree in creative technologies and practice.
Cool.
I see.
So I don't really know what the end goal is, but I'm in school and it's great. I love being a student.
Uh-huh.
I'm learning. So it's an art degree, but it's interdisciplinary, and I can kind of really make it whatever I want it to be. So I'm the only art classes I'm taking right now are my required thesis and seminar classes that I have to take every semester. And I'm taking a math modeling class and I'm taking a Python programming class in our earth sciences department because the computer science department makes you take all these undergraduate prerequisites in order to take their graduate programming classes. So luckily earth sciences offers a Python class that you don't need any prerequisites for. So I did a little workaround there. But I don't know, I've been playing around with all this augmented reality stuff for my graduate seminar. So we just put up an art show in the gallery where everybody has between 1 to 3 pieces. Most people only put in 1 piece because it was a lot of work. And every piece has an augmented reality aspect to it. So the whole show, there's going to be a QR code for each piece of artwork and then some augmented reality things. So I have this canonical 8-fold rosette painting that I did like 5 years ago, but then when you scan the QR code, one of my animations shows up.
Wow.
And so the lines.
Can you demonstrate any of this for us?
Sure. If you get your cell phone out, I'll pull up a QR code for you.
Great.
Let's see. All right. So scan the QR code. I have to share screen again, don't I? I stopped sharing. Guess that helps. All right. All right. So scan the QR code.
This page isn't available.
Is it doing that for anybody else?
It took me to Instagram.
It should take you to
Oh, okay.
Instagram.
Yeah.
So it should
Yep.
take you to Instagram and it should do like a little
Same
like
here,
circle thing and then tell you to look for an image.
Yeah, it says find the
Okay.
image.
Yes.
So now I'm
It's
going to
not
pull up the
available.
image for you to
Oh,
for you to look at. So now look at this image.
Hmm. That didn't work for me.
So you might have to do it a little bit quicker in succession. Here, I'll pull up the QR code again.
I guess I don't know what I'm doing with the QR code. I just hold my phone at it and it,
So the QR code should take you to Instagram and it's like it wants to apply a filter.
okay, so I
And
just like
the
press it like, let's see.
So the filter
Instagram.
should prompt you to find an image. And then when you're ready to find the image, you want to look at this. And you might have to kind of move in and out in order to find the animation, but the animation should come up.
I got it. I had to get closer than I expected.
Yeah. Awesome.
I lost it.
I don't know what I'm doing.
It's a little finicky, you know, it's weird technology, but it works a little bit better like in real life than trying to scan it on the computer.
Very cool.
Thanks. Anyway, I shared a thing on Instagram where you can kind of see me like with the AR hovering over the image. If you couldn't get it to work, it works a lot better in real life, which is kind of funny because it's a totally not real life thing. But so that's kind of what I've been doing lately.
How long is your program?
It's a 3-year program.
Oh boy, and you have children too, right?
I do. So I'm a busy bee.
Wow.
Mansfield.
Yeah. And I'm still working like several different jobs. So it's
there's no need to sleep though, is there?
What's
No
that?
need to sleep. No need to sleep.
No, sleep is important. Sleep is very important. So I'm in bed by 8 o'clock most nights. I definitely make sure I'm getting my sleep. I'm not a procrastinator, so as soon as I get assigned something,
I just don't know when you
I'm
find
working on it.
time to sleep. How do you find the time to sleep? Too busy.
I don't know. I don't do a whole I haven't been posting much on the social media. I haven't been doing a whole lot of, you know, I don't really have downtime outside of sleeping is my downtime. So, most of my waking hours are pretty structured and you know, I'm doing stuff. My breaks between classes, I'm studying or doing my assignments. And then once I'm home for the day, it's all about the kids and all that sort of thing. So yeah.
Okay, well, thanks for
Yeah.
sharing your talents with us and your
Yes.
as part of your busy schedule. It's
You're
really-
welcome. No, this is part of the downtime too, because I enjoy this. But I'm absolutely open to the what comes next. You know, and I certainly don't mind like redoing things that I've done like years ago that maybe only folks on the Patreon saw, but other folks didn't, or even folks that are newer to the Patreon haven't seen yet.
Yeah, There,
you
there
know.
just one thing came to me after last time was I didn't really know what Apollonius's theorem was. Now I don't know if there's a big market for those kind of explanations. And there was one point that you said we're going to find the geometric mean.
Mhm.
And I've studied about the geometric mean, and I could, but it's like actually using it in a context. So I could have used a little bit more, but that,
Yeah.
explication of how that all fits in.
So I've played around with the idea of just teaching a Euclidean geometry class, like just sort of from start to,
Huh.
I mean, there's not really a finish because you can just keep getting deeper and deeper, but sort of doing a for adults version of what I used to teach my high school students with a lot more of like practical application aspect to it. Like, we wouldn't do probably quite as much of the proof, but we would do a little bit of that because it's important and it gets you thinking of that like step by step. So I don't know if there's actually an interest in if anyone would want to actually do that.
Sure.
Well, I first met you through the geometry symposium offered by the Prince's School.
Okay.
And and I loved it because you showed about how to construct a parallel line, and then I did a series of works called Parallel Line. I mean, so the points, like I sort of hate geometric proofs, and I sort of hate Euclid in a way. It's just it ruins it for everybody. But insofar as there's points where you can turn it into something else and find its usefulness artistically, that's what I'm very interested in.
Well, maybe then just a series of working through this guy.
Yeah.
This is my favorite book. It's all, I got little page marks. I've got
Yeah.
some notes written in the margins, corrections where there's mistakes.
Yeah. That might be good. And then you can throw in, oh, here's proposition 20, or here's the parallel line postulate, or
Yeah, we can definitely do some of that. Would you want it with GeoGebra or by hand?
Me personally, I think I learn more by hand. On the other hand, it might be more cumbersome, so maybe a combination even. That's hard to say, because GeoGebra, I find myself like then the move tool and which thing, and then the properties, like I'm doing a software thing.
Right.
And it's when I'm using my hands, it's more of a mind-body connection. But
Yeah. Ty, have you worked through the whole book?
No, but I was looking at it this week because I was trying to do this before class,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't know how to divide the circle into three without like getting like kind of how we did it today was where my brain went first, and then I divided a segment with circles into three, and so I figured out how you could do it, and then I flipped this open, and it seems like you could also do the 7 circles in a circle method,
Mm-hmm.
because then you have 3 circles going across that diameter.
Right.
But no, I haven't worked through the full book.
Okay.
I personally like working in GeoGebra because I tend to take these files and manipulate them in Illustrator and do things like that. And I also like when you're able to set it up so that you can kind of play with different points and see the relationship as points change. Just like as long
Right.
as the relationship's set up correctly, you can kind of manipulate it, and it allows your brain to kind of understand it in a different way visually.
Right. So maybe I think something that might be a good kind of continuation from the series that I did this month would be just some of the constructions in here about tangent circles, where you're playing with circle tangent to a line and a circle with a certain center or things like that, where you can do, like you said, is sort of set up arbitrary points or arbitrary circles and then see how changing those points changes the construction. That might be kind of a good place to go next.
That'd be good for me, definitely.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And actually, the idea of just doing everything in the book is a good idea. It's like I have so many things I could do. I've thought of doing that in the past. And
Yeah.
I mean, I refer to this when I need to do something, but I just working the way through the book systematically would be a very good idea.
Yeah, no, this book is like my default, like if I have a brain block or don't know what to draw, it's like, okay, let's just do some compass exercises. Like,
I need
let's
to
just
know where the mistakes are.
um
Oh,
I say mistakes plural, but I think there's really just one that I've found. So I'll tell you on page 27,
right.
construction 91,
Yep.
step 8.
Which book is this you're talking?
So this is Dowd Sutton's Ruler and Compass, little wooden book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Yours
Yeah.
just looks so much bigger.
I have the hardcover.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So page 27.
Yeah, page 27, number 91, step 8. It should be arc IH, not arc GH.
Oh, right.
And probably everybody else that's attempted that construction has just gotten frustrated and thought they were doing something wrong, but I persisted until I figured out what I was doing wrong.
Yeah.
So there's some good content for you. All right. Cool. Well, yeah, let's do that. Is there a Saturday next month that's better or worse?
Saturdays are okay. I signed up for that class with the Prince's School called Alfak, Number in Harmony and Shape, and that takes place in October. So
Is it a Saturday?
No, it's not a Saturday. It's Thursday, but it'll be a
Okay.
busy month.
Because I don't
Which
think
days were you proposing?
some Saturday, maybe the 14th.
Yep. I'm in.
Oh, actually, how about the 21st? I think we have family visiting on the 14th.
We could do the 21st. That totally works. So I'll set up a Zoom and Eventbrite and all of that and post about it and share links and all those things. Because I wasn't really sure what to do next. So this is good. We'll work through some of those exercises. I'm not sure how many we'll get through, but just some of those, just practice with tangent circles. I think those will do us all some good.
Maybe
Yep.
you should change your name to like Dr. Tangent or something.
I do love tangent circles. They are my favorite thing, I think.
You could make a hat with tangent circles.
Yeah. All right.
Right. Great stuff. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for
Yeah, thank you,
coming.
Sarah.
You know, I couldn't do this without you. So thanks. I appreciate it.
So helpful. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
So,
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you very
Bye.
much. Bye bye.
Bye.